Good evening, and thank you for having me, dear distinguished guests, Lord Mayor, representatives of Forum 2000, delegations from all around the world. I'm truly honored to be amongst you all, but mostly honored to be here in the home of former President Václav Havel and to speak at a forum dedicated also to his legacy. President Havel was a true European, a true visionary, a true statesman, and a true friend of the Republic of Kosovo. Most importantly, he was a true champion of democracy and democratic values. My people hold fond memories of President Havel because he was not just a friend of my country, but also a dear friend of the founding father of our republic, President Ibrahim Rugova. The two leaders shared a common vision for the people and the beloved countries they led. They were stoic in their opposition to totalitarian ideologies and hegemonic regimes because they truly believed in the power of democracy. They knew that freedom came with a very high price, but they, alongside their people, were willing to pay it. Today, they remain symbols of democracy beyond the borders of our respective countries. The values, ideals, and principles to which they both dedicated their lives are as relevant today as ever. Perhaps even more so today when our European and democratic way of life is under threat, when the entire security architecture of our continent is under threat. The war in Ukraine is showcasing the absolute urgency and necessity of multilateralism and of a unified response of all those who believe in the value of democracy. In the face of global disruptions and challenges, the importance of our unity and the power of partnerships has never been more important than now. It is therefore timely and right that the focus of this conference is on Ukraine, who is currently bearing the heavy burden of fighting Europe's fight against tyranny and hegemony. They're not just fighting this war for their own right to exist. They are fighting this war for all of us. Hence, tonight, I want us all to take a moment and reflect on how much we truly owe to the people of Ukraine. We owe them a huge debt of gratitude for their courage and resilience. We should remember this gratitude when we look at how we can help them protect their nation now and then help them rebuild their country tomorrow. And while I wholeheartedly support and thank you all for the discussions and the work you're doing about their future, it's important that we not only continue but also increase the focus on what we can and should be doing right now. How do we continue to support Ukraine until Ukraine wins? And how can we help them put an end to Russia's brutality and their unjust and unprovoked war against the people of Ukraine? As someone who went through a horrendous war, I can tell you that in those darkest days, freedom is the only thing you yearn for. You dream of a safe place to sleep at night. You dream of the right to go to school without being afraid. You dream of speaking your own language without fear or violence. You dream of peace. How you will rebuild the roads and revive the economy comes only after freedom, peace, and justice are won. Hence, while the future is profoundly important and we need to have a real discussion about how we can help Ukraine rebuild, let's focus on winning this war now. We need to do more. We need to do more, and we can all do more so that the dreams of peace and freedom of Ukrainian children, women, and men can become a reality as soon as possible. And every country can play its part, from military aid to taking in refugees. Kosovo, for its part, may be a small country, but we are committed and we're working hard to supporting the people of Ukraine, as we know too well what it means to live in horror and understand their pain extremely well. They are going through horrendous human rights violations that go beyond human imagination. But as I wrote to President Zelensky on Ukraine's National Day, the people of Kosovo know that when there is determination, perseverance, and resistance, there is nothing that can stand in the way of the will of a people for freedom. There's nothing. Europe must learn from the tragic events unfolding on our continent. European institutions need to enter a period of self-reflection and redefine their relations with countries that remain outside of the European Union, yet are part of and at the very heart of the European continent. For too long, technical and administrative questions or complaints of fatigue had undertaken or overtaken, in fact, the narrative and importance of European values that are at the very foundation of the Union. European integration for the countries of the Western Balkans, therefore, can no longer be seen as something that can wait, as it is a matter of essential geopolitical importance. This is a much bigger historic, social, economic, and political cause than the approach we have witnessed for decades. It is a matter of preserving peace, democracy, and security on European soil. The more Europe there will be in the Western Balkans, the more there will be stability, democracy, and peace in Europe. A vacuum of European influence, and if I may add, transatlantic influence, means a void and vacuum that will be inevitably filled by those who have malign tendencies and do not want to see a prosperous or united continent of Europe. EU leaders have shown leadership in the enlargement process with granting Ukraine and Moldova candidate status. This is indeed commendable and utterly welcome, but the reality is that a Europe whole, free, and at peace is not possible without the Western Balkans. As President Havel so eloquently and poignantly put it years ago, we cannot have two separate Europes simply coexisting side by side, one democratic and prosperous, and another one less stable and less prosperous. In his words, this is simply illusory. He described it as coexisting in a room half flooded yet half dry, which, as we know, is impossible. And despite differences among countries within our continent, we are indivisible, and anything that happens in one part of the continent will inevitably have repercussions for it all. Dear participants, Europe needs decisive leadership. We need concrete action towards fulfilling the vision of a united, free, and peaceful Europe. We need each other for a Europe that we have all individually contributed to, for a Europe where respect for freedoms, equality before the law, and democratic institutions prevails. We need an accelerated process of integration for those countries that truly stand for these values. The Western Balkans, at least those Western Balkan countries that stand for these values, Ukraine, Moldova, Georgia, and other countries that are continuing to support these values and have chosen the Euro-Atlantic path and demonstrated this commitment also in action, not just in words. If we cannot understand today the immense importance of this in the context of the Russian aggression against Ukraine and the brutal attack on democracy, that enlargement is a fundamental and a vital interest of also the European Union itself, then Europe risks failing one of the most important tests of modern history. But as a true believer in Europe and the European values, and as the representative of a people that have sacrificed so much to achieve freedom and have for centuries rejected and fought tyrannies and genocidal regimes, I am confident that Europe's brightest days are ahead of us. We need to remember that as much as we all need Europe today, Europe needs each and every one of us. So let's make sure that we don't let it down. I'll conclude with what I said in an earlier panel today that was dedicated to the legacy of Madeleine Albright, Secretary Albright, since this forum is also dedicated to Ukraine. The lesson from great leaders like President Havel and Secretary Albright, but generally a lesson that we should learn from history, is that we should never forget the moral compass. We should not get stuck in the side or in the trap of both-sidism. There can be no both sides without a moral center. Whether you're the victim or you're the aggressor should matter. Whether you're the attacker or the people who are attacked should matter. Whether you're the one fighting for your own existence and for your freedom, or the one who's fighting the existence of the other, should matter. The moral compass should matter. Because as President Havel said in his famous speech at the US Congress, the salvation of this human world lies nowhere else than the human heart and human responsibility. Thank you all.